Testing, testing, checking. Check, check, check.
Land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was the agreement made between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase of 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the City of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our role as residents, neighbours, partners, and caretakers. We have the agenda laid out. Are there any changes that people would like to recommend to the agenda as it's stated out into the on the portal? No? Okay. So then if the agenda is okay as it is, can I just get a mover and a seconder? Mover, Sue, a seconder, Ellen. And all in favor? Guess we have to kind of do that, I guess. Yeah. All in favor? All right, excellent. Any oppositions? All right, perfect, thank you. All right. So we have the next, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from any of the committee members? Nope. All right. So there are no declarations of interest. If we could note that in the minutes on that one. And then we're going to move into the approval of the minutes from the February 25th meeting. So we do have one item to discuss that was an action item in the minutes, and that is agenda item 11.2 in the meeting notes or minutes. And that is relating to the Climate Change Advisory Committee voting to fill the 2 vacancies as soon as possible. Trevor, can I call on you to just speak to conversations between clerks and this motion?
Well, I just wanted to ask a process question that I'm hoping the councillors may help us answer, or perhaps the staff liaison, Beatrice Okoko. But as councillors that sit on the General Issues Committee, this advisory committee reports technically up to the General Issues Committee. And I'm just curious, can any of the councillors confirm, once these minutes are approved, do they automatically go to General Issues Committee, or any advice on process would be appreciated for clarification?
Yeah, I'm happy to try to respond the best I can if it's helpful. Generally speaking, the minutes and reports from all advisory committees go up to the committee they report to. So we often regularly see seniors advisory committee minutes coming up to whatever committee it reports to. So yes, that does happen. What I will say to you is that if the committee is making a recommendation that's contained in the minutes, oftentimes those get lost in the minutes. So it gets approved, that's part of the minutes, that's fine. But usually if the committee is making a recommendation of some kind, that would get taken out. You'd write a citizen committee report, and then you'd submit that citizen committee report as a recommendation to the committee. I think we're talking about filling the seats here in terms of the vacant seats and the selection committee process for that. I know Councillor Cassar, Councillor Alice Wilson, and I all sit on the big selection committee for other selection, but none of us sit on the one for GIC. It's its own specific subcommittee. I think it's Councillor Nan and Councillor Clark who do that. So in a situation like this where you don't have a citizen committee report about it, you're not making it a recommendation as part of minutes. Once minutes have been approved and you see them on the agenda, I would just forward them to the councillors involved in the committee and just let them know, hey, we made this request, and see if the chair of that subcommittee can activate the process. Seems like that's a fine activity to be up to. I know that in the past, traditionally, sometimes we didn't fill positions in the interim in the middle of terms. But, and Councillor Cassar or Alice Wilson can speak to this, we have been doing that this term of council. So when there have been vacancies, we have been trying to fill those vacancies. The chair of the farmers market, for instance, a very similar situation. I've put in a request to have a pause until we have our governance review completed, and then we're going to be filling the vacancies in the farmers market. So, you know, typically speaking, it's been a request from the body itself to the committee. It's just not necessarily a clear through line. So I would just say, you know, as city staff, you of course have access to everybody. Just send them an email with a heads up and ask for a response and bring it back here next time.
Is there, so what's the action item coming from that? Just so we can note that in the minutes.
I think there's, thank you, Councillor Kretsch. From what I've heard, the action item, excuse me, the action item is for our staff liaison to send once these meeting minutes are approved by the committee, we can just send it as a flag to the councillors of the interview subcommittee for this advisory committee. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Are there any other items coming from the minutes of the February meeting? Any questions on the notes? No? Okay, then can I ask for a mover and a seconder for the meeting notes? All right, perfect. Thanks, Ian. Do I have a seconder? Perfect, thank you. Mary Ellen.
It's actually Shelley.
Oh, Shelley, sorry. Okay. So I got Ian and Shelley for mover and seconder. All others in favor? Do we need to get the hands up? All right, any opposed? No, carries. All right. And then next item on the agenda, we don't have any delegations for this meeting. So the next items are for information, and we'll start out with the Biodiversity Action Plan updates. And then I was wondering if I could ask you to introduce yourselves just before you start the presentation, if that's okay.
Yeah, my name is Shauna Hessman. I'm Senior Program Coordinator in the Park Section of Environmental Services and Public Works.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Vreitz. I am a Senior Project Manager in the Community Engagement Office in the City Manager's Office.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Allen. I'm a Planner 1 in the Sustainable Communities section of the Planning Division.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Take it away.
Great. So for those of you who are just hearing about the Biodiversity Action Plan, the city is one of several partner organizations who have worked to develop this plan. Today, our presentation will focus on the city's role in implementing efforts. Next slide, please. The Biodiversity Action Plan is a celebration of collective efforts of the organizations you see listed on the screen and more. Each of these organizations are committing staff time, resources, and expertise to implement the plan. Internally at the city, staff from across the corporation have collaborated and have built professional relationships amongst departments. We anticipate that this will allow for more coordinated actions in the future of the Biodiversity Action Plan. Next slide, please. On the screen is a brief overview of the history of the BAP development. This collaborative work has been underway since 2018, and the project itself has evolved over that time. When the first draft was received by council, staff were directed to engage with the public. The final BAP document was edited and further refined due to this engagement. The intent of the plan is that it will be utilized as a framework for collaboration and partnership, ensuring that efforts are focused and coordinated across agencies. Next slide, please.
The final Biodiversity Action Plan is laid out into 3 sections. Where Are We?, which explains the biodiversity in Hamilton and its known threats, as well as the associated policy context, including existing initiatives, strategies, and targets the city is committed to. Where Are We Going? As outlined in the vision statement for the Biodiversity Action Plan, we are looking to create a Hamilton that is resilient to climate change, celebrates nature, and provides a healthy environment for all life. How we get there? Goals, key priorities, and actions have been identified to address local threats and protect biodiversity in Hamilton. The goals are the overarching themes of the document, which are to protect, explore, connect, and restore. And all the actions in the action plan are grouped under one of the 7 key priorities. So the action table shown on this slide shows all the actions under one of the key priorities, as well as the associated goal, timeframe, leading partner, and supporting partners. Next slide, please. So the Biodiversity Action Plan identifies 68 priority actions in total, split amongst the partner agencies to be initiated over the next 5 years. The City of Hamilton is identified as the lead on 32 actions, with actions in each of the 7 key priorities. Staff have also identified an opportunity for the city to support at minimum 15 additional actions led by external agencies, with the possibility of additional actions being identified as partner agencies initiate their actions. Next slide, please. The Planning Division is involved with 23 actions and are the leading partner in 9, which are summarized on the slide. These actions are related to new and existing work programs in the Planning Division. They include the development of various processes, working groups, reports, studies, and guidelines, as well as the review of the natural heritage policies in the city's official plans and the inclusion of biodiversity in the evaluation of urban design and architectural awards. 1 full-time equivalent position has been approved in the 2025 budget to assist with these actions. Next slide, please.
Public Works has committed to 19 actions over the 5-year plan. 4 of these actions are in progress, being led by the environmental services sections of parks, cemeteries, forestry, and business programs. Environmental services requested 4 new full-time equivalent positions to be split between parks and landscape architectural services. The intent for these positions is to create a team that builds on aligned strategic plans, data collection, and a coordinated approach in developing a framework to support implementation of the actions. These positions were approved during the 2025 budget process. Hamilton Water completed their action to create a watershed action plan. This plan was received by Council in 2024. The team is working with the Office of Climate Change Initiatives to plan for low-impact developments and working with City Labs to investigate effective locations for green infrastructure. On the screen, you will see a list of some of the city's strategies and projects that align with the Biodiversity Action Plan. Next slide, please.
Okay, so this slide outlines the key ongoing and upcoming administrative tasks for the Biodiversity Action Plan. So in terms of the governance model, we're finalizing the governance model to guide decision-making amongst the partner agencies, and it will look similar to the Coast to Escarpment Eco Park system when it's complete, but it's currently still in its draft form. For the committee structure, the plan will have a management committee and an actions level steering committee, and the terms of reference for these 2 committees are being developed, and they'll be included in a partnership agreement between the agencies. And so community involvement will follow in the governance model once we have a BAP coordinator housed temporarily at the city and then long-term hopefully through one of the agencies, whether it's a city or another partner agency. And then in terms of committee roles, the management committee would be made up of senior leaders, and it would handle legal, staffing, and financial decisions related to the plan, while the steering committee would be made up of agency partners and project leads on certain actions in the plan. And the formation of this would begin once the partnership agreement is signed. In terms of agency conversations, the city is helping to lead some efforts to facilitate communication between the agencies, including a recent partner meet and greet session, which is the second of which that we had that was really helpful for partners to get to know all the other individuals at the agencies that they're going to be working with over the next 5 years. And we did this here in this room at City Hall. It was wonderful. And we are also working to develop a communication strategy. And this is being developed to ensure that we have consistent, coordinated outreach across the different organizations. And our city communications team is helping, and we've requested some assistance with branding and coming up with some consistent communications materials. In terms of data collection and sharing, a data collection program is underway, and most of this is actually tied to the initiation of the natural areas inventory, which is already underway. And agencies will be submitting standardized data, which will be reported annually. The Biodiversity Action Plan Coordinator, so right now we have, as Jen mentioned, a full-time equivalent position in planning will be initiated sometime this year because it was approved in the budget. And that position would take on the role of a temporary biodiversity action plan coordinator on behalf of the city to get things like a long-term funding strategy set up for the plan. And this role would handle other administrative tasks related to communication, reporting, and work to securing a permanent position for that coordinator. And finally, the Biodiversity Action Plan Progress Report. There will be reports presented to General Issues Committee in June of 2025, and this would provide updates specifically on the city's actions that are in the plan, but it will provide an overview of some of the partner agencies' actions and plans for the following year. Next slide, please. So Biodiversity Action Plan partners have been out in community, and we've been sharing community level actions that are in the plan. These actions are on the slide according to the goal that they represent that they respond to in the plan. It's not intended that these actions are hard and fast list of what is needed, but they do offer an opportunity for a starting point for community conversation and for individuals to take action at the local level. Next slide, please. And just quickly, I won't spend too much time on this, but if it's part of the slide deck, wonderful, but we do have some upcoming events hosted by partner agencies. So the first is the Biodiversity in Hamilton Open House Series. This is the second event will be happening in person tomorrow evening. We did hold one last week in Binbrook, and this is coordinated with the Natural Areas Inventory Project. We have a virtual meeting happening on April 2nd as well. Similar content will be presented. And this is also an opportunity to learn about the urban forest strategy and watershed action plan. And McMaster is hosting the 2024 Environmentalist of the Year Awards on April 4th, and that registration is online through Nature at McMaster. Conservation Halton is hosting a full-day Design Your Landscape workshop in Flamborough on April 5th. And on April 14th, the Hamilton Naturalist Club is hosting a presentation by Dr. Pat Chow-Fraser from McMaster University about the importance of coastal marshes and small wetlands for biodiversity. So thank you for giving us the time. Next slide, please. I'm trying to meet my time here. Thank you for giving us the time to present on the Biodiversity Action Plan, and the plan signals a commitment across organizations to work towards common goals to ensure Hamilton's biodiversity is protected for the long term. So if there's time for questions, myself, Shauna, and Jen are happy to answer them for the committee. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the presentation. Are there any questions for Shauna, Lauren, and Jen? Take it away, Lucia. Can you open up the?
No, the far right.
Go ahead, Lucia.
Okay, sure, I'll go ahead while you guys get it sorted out.
And then for anyone online, if you could just raise your hand if you have any questions, and then we'll be sure to open the floor up to you.
Just a quick question, because, I'm thinking a lot about metrics, and we've been talking a lot with CCAC about how to chart progress for the community in a really clear way. Just want to get a sense of how the city is going to measure and separate some of the goals. For example, planting 50,000 trees, maybe some trees are being planted as part of the Biodiversity Action Plan. Is that being double counted? Are those separate? How do we show progress on climate goals versus BAP? Are they the same? Are they different? Can you guys speak a little bit to, when we talk about some of these actions, there's obviously overlap. Is that overlap, again, contributing to everything? Is that overlap being tracked separately?
So forestry is the lead on the action where it comes to the community tree plantings. So they're collecting that metric. So each of the organizations is collecting a metrics as to what actions they're doing, and then we're going to be combining those efforts and those KPIs all together. So the work that, let's say, Green Venture does to help with, or Hamilton Naturalist Club, that helps with those community tree planting events, that all of that number is going to be kept by forestry, and then forestry has that base number. And also any numbers that we get from Hamilton Conservation Authority, if they do any tree planting on their sites as well, that's just a combined effort, and that number will go to that base number.
And will the sources of all these things be kept separate? You know, again, just thinking in terms of things like showing the community a dashboard on how Hamilton's climate action strategy as a whole is progressing, maybe even being able to say, you know, hey, the biodiversity action plan has actually been really helpful. Like a quarter of this progress has been from that alone, right? Is that underlying information going to be held?
Yeah, so right now, right now we have a tracking submission form. So every time that somebody, one of our partner organizations, does any work towards their goals or towards their actions, they're filling out a form that Lauren has set up that will go towards tracking that. So we can keep them separate. We know what group was working on it. We know what action that was supporting so that we can have that number towards the end.
Really quick follow-up, kind of talking about how these things are linked. Are projects that would be expanding, you know, or accelerating some of the BAP things eligible to apply for example, climate change reserve funding? Is that the kind of thing that would happen, or is the funding and asks around BAP completely separated from Hamilton's climate action strategy?
So there was an action, the Natural Areas Inventory Project was funded from the Climate Change Reserve. So that being an initiative that is part of the whole umbrella of initiatives, obviously can have that funding. If there's other opportunities that may be appropriate, I think it has to align with those funding objectives, right? And so provided that it would be in line with that, there may be an opportunity, but yeah, so I mean, we already have an example, right, of one that, and it's a great project, and I think we're going to see a lot of value from it, and I think every group around the city is going to see a lot of value in terms of the metrics. And I guess also getting onto metrics, that project will be really insightful for us for a lot of the natural area information when it comes to our mapping and policy.
Comment. So I think you're asking really good questions, Lucia, around just coordinating data collection. And for us, we've got our specific list of actions, and we're reaching out to all of the different divisions and asking for information. So I think maybe over time that we'll probably be getting more, I think, just in terms of the specific criteria that we ask for data and information on as set out in Hamilton's climate action strategy. But I think just like the urban forest strategy, you're going to get I think fair to say through staff reporting on those specific plans or strategies, you're going to get richer, deeper data reporting with us pulling out key pieces that will factor into the climate reporting side of things, if that makes sense. But I'm expecting over time, because clearly there's ramping up of data collection, that it's ultimately going to help us to do better, more extensive reporting on, and hopefully on more things that are happening that are helping to contribute to the goals that we've kind of plucked out as being key actions we need to track within Hamilton's climate action strategy. I hope that helps a little bit. Yeah.
Perfect. And then just Sue has one question.
Could you just clarify one thing for me? I'm not sure if there was a position you were saying that you're hoping that the city could take on, and if not, then your partners could. Do they have capacity to do that if you don't?
So apologies if it wasn't clear, but so in the 2025 budget process, and actually when the Biodiversity Action Plan report went forward last June, there was a recommendation that we'd come back to council at the time of budget and ask for a 1 full-time equivalent in planning and 4 through Public Works. And the intention with the one position in planning is that position would find almost like a gap. It's going to be a permanent position focused on natural heritage policy, but the intention is that it's an opportunity to play the role of the BAP coordinator for a time, because it's not, we need to develop a funding strategy for this long term. Right now, the city is best poised to support funding a biodiversity action plan coordinator because of the infrastructure that we have at the city, and just in terms of administrative supports, meeting space, and that sort of function and communication. So the intention is that after 18 months, there will be a review of where that position sits. And if there is a funding strategy that allows it to be housed at a partner agency, say like the Hamilton Naturalist Club or any of the other partner agencies that would be amenable to having that, then we'd be looking at revising our partnership agreement to make sure that that's integrated.
Any questions from anyone online?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to know, I've taken some interest in the West Harbor setting sail secondary plan, which really is focused on the area on the bayfront and trying to promote diversity of land, unused waterfront areas, open spaces, maintaining recreational, residential and commercial and institutional facilities in that area of the city. How do you have any action plans for that zone and specifically tying in with what the city's trying to do to develop West Harbor setting sail? It's also called setting sail secondary plan. So that's the question.
So there's no specific action for that area, but one of the actions is to review the natural heritage policies of the official plans, which that plan would fall under. And so that would, I guess, fall into that review. I don't know, Lauren, if you have anything to add, but that would be where that would fall.
I believe they're redoing the waterfront master plan, and they'll be including most likely some naturalized areas. And I know our landscape architectural services section is looking at, or within the plan, we'll be looking at renaturalization areas throughout the parks and open spaces. And so that should be reflected within the bayfront area.
Thank you. Ian, can I ask you to take the chair so I can ask a question? All right, thank you. I was just curious about how, like with the changes that the province made to the wetland evaluation system, I was wondering if this strategy or the natural assets inventory is going to serve as a mechanism to keep track of the wetlands within Hamilton, provincially significant wetlands within Hamilton's boundary, and what happens to them with the changes to the evaluation system and the risk of them losing their provincially significant wetland status.
So currently, watershed management is working on the natural assets in management plans. That is through our corporate asset management to fit with OREG.
Oh, that's okay. I
always forget the number 588/17. So within that, I know they're looking at the various levels of importance of the wetlands. But when it comes to any of the management of watershed, it's all through the watershed action plan. I know they've got their own, so you'd have to, I don't want to pass it off, that question to them, but I think they would be the best people to answer that question.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Oh, Alex, take it away.
Yeah, just Gabby to offer as partners in BAP, all the conservation authorities, if they're, because they're the ones who will have to permit an activity. And so they'll be letting their boards know, again, they might have to say yes to the permit under this legislation, but they'll be at least in that report be an awareness piece saying, historically, this was part of our regulated area where we would not have allowed development. Now, based on provincial legislation, pending any other types of reviews, because again, it's not just the buffer zone, it could be other factors. So the conservation authorities would be the kind of coordinating partner within the BAP, would be best attuned to where that might be happening. To date, I'm not aware of any applications. I could, but that's just off memory. But I would say they would be the data partner when that data all comes together, and they would have maybe most visibility to it.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for that update. All right. I don't see any other hands up or questions, so thank you very much for your presentation. Really appreciate that update on the back.
Thank you so much for having us.
Then we have some updates from the Office of Climate Change Initiatives. We'll start out with 7.2, which is the Climate Change Reserve update. Linda, you're...
Yeah, thanks very much, Gabby. So just wanted to share a quick update. We did have a more informal session last night with interested advisory committee members just to discuss the funding template that we used in 2024, including a walking through and a chance for advisory committee members to provide some feedback on the criteria that were used in the past. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended and participated in that session last night. I just wanted to recap, just for the benefit of the whole committee, that I did walk through a bit of an explanation of the 3 possible climate change reserve funding buckets that we've been talking about so far. And one of those is the bucket that has probably been the most active one for city-led initiatives through that internal application process. We also have in our work plan for this year, as advisory committee members know, a neighborhood climate action small grants program. And so there'll be a funding bucket for those smaller grants really designed to facilitate empowerment and climate action at the neighborhood level. And then the third sort of bucket is support to other community partners. So at this point, we don't have a formal program that facilitates intake of applications for that purpose, although we have had examples, as Lauren pointed out, for instance, through councillor motion for support for things like the natural areas inventory through community partners really leading the charge. So that third piece, a program doesn't exist, but a potential pathway forward would be a stream, potentially a stream through our existing city enrichment fund. But just want to acknowledge at this point, we haven't moved on that piece. So just as far as what's coming next on this piece, we're going to send an email out just sharing the deck that we used at that session last night, and happy to accept any additional feedback from advisory committee members. Ideally, by midway through next week, April 2nd would be helpful, just so we can start to take that next step of updating the template, which we will share back with advisory committee members for comment. And we'll be doing the same with our internal director level climate change initiative steering committee, so we can then move ultimately to finalization of that template for those city-led initiatives this year. And our aim and our hope is to open the application intake by early May of this year. And I think the other piece I just want to share today, and this emerged out of conversation at that director level steering committee, just thinking around how do we engage the advisory committee in some way earlier in the process. And so the proposed pathway forward is to look at recruiting several of the advisory committee members into that process that happens through the director level steering committee, a subcommittee of that group. We'd like to see the addition of a couple of advisory committee members there to help with that process, to be part of the scoring and the discussion around determining the recommended list of projects moving forward. So I put that out there as something that we'd like to see the committee think about, determine whether you just ask for volunteers or go through a process to recruit those folks in. We can certainly keep you up to speed on the timelines and next steps for that piece. I mean, at this point, we would likely be looking at June, maybe late June sometime, in terms of when the reviewing and scoring is likely to happen, given the timeline we're trying to move forward at this point. So that's just a quick update on Climate Change Reserve. I don't know if anyone has any questions. See, Ian has a question.
There's a question from Ian and then Lucia.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. Really quickly, I think inclusion of one or two committee members at least in that steering committee is really exciting, and I appreciate the willingness from staff for involving us in that in any capacity. I think that's really great. But just one really quick question. For the bucket for neighborhood-based action, what will be, do you know yet what will the eligibility requirements be for that? Like, will it be requirement of like having it as a neighborhood association, or could individual residents who kind of band together do a project like that?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Ian. The fine details are still to be determined, but I think fair to say we're interested in seeing how we can make a process work that would facilitate the ability of more informally organized groups to access support. But all of that's still to be determined. And I should also say, for that piece, we do intend to come back to this committee as we develop that program. With an aim for intake, hopefully by in the fourth quarter of this year. So we've got some time in the lead up to that point to work out more details. And we'll definitely want your input and advice as we develop that piece.
Great, thank you so much.
Just nitty gritty here on timeline. April 2nd was the day that you wanted feedback that committee members who came to the meeting yesterday already would have sent. Then you're going to send an updated thing around, and then you want feedback by the end of April on the updated one. Is that, have I got that right?
Yes. So probably third week in April we'd be, so we'll be by that point, we'll hopefully be moving quickly on just getting final feedback so we can finalize
and that's corporate. And then the timeline for community stream in terms of criteria, I assume they're going to be probably somewhat similar. I know Ian touched on a couple questions there, but what's the timeline for that one?
Yeah, so for the neighborhood level, the small grants program, we'll be coming back to you hopefully soon with some more information, but it's basically that program will be more built around modules. So we're really trying to build something that supports the ability of neighborhoods to kind of get themselves organized, develop networks at the neighborhood level, and move from there. So it'll be more, we're looking for feedback on the modules that we're developing and what they should focus on, and what topics should we be covering, what kinds of actions should we be including in modules that we would put out there. And then I guess associated with that, it's probably, that piece is, I'm anticipating it's going to look differently from the internal application template, just in the sense that there will be a lot of sort of pre-structured, set out activities that neighborhoods could access support to implement. But at the same time, we're also thinking about, for neighborhoods that are moving further along and want to attempt to do more, ensuring that we've got something in that program that gives people some flexibility to be able to come in and say, we've got an idea that we'd like to pitch. And so I'm envisioning probably more for those sorts of opportunities. We're going to need to think a little bit more about, okay, how would we assess those and determine whether we're going to fund a neighborhood that wants to do, I don't know, initiative X that isn't a module, but it's something that they've decided they'd like to pursue. So it'll be kind of prescriptive, but I think partly just to bring people along. And we'll be looking for your feedback too on how we can also open up opportunities that give neighborhoods the ability to figure out and pursue projects that they're excited about as well, in addition to what we might have mapped out.
But it needs to be a neighborhood group. So for example, like out of curiosity, say, a local group wants to do something in a neighborhood. They're like, hey, we've identified this as a neighborhood in need, and we're interested in focusing on doing X, Y, or Z. Is that something, or are we sort of thinking about like residents who, yeah, this is my address is in this neighborhood, and I would like to do X?
I think we're thinking about the latter for the most part, but I don't think there's anything to prevent us from looking at the reality that maybe in some neighborhoods there is a need for organizations to come in and facilitate the ability of people at the neighborhood level to get organized. So looking for your input on that on
Yeah,
that kind of thinking too.
Preliminarily, I imagine that you're going to hear that feedback from us from a climate justice perspective, is that the barriers to access under the model where you look kind of for self-starter citizens, you're going to find that they're going to be in the areas that probably don't need the funding quite as much. So, looking at ways that we can kind of kickstart things in other communities is going to be top of mind. But we can talk about that when it comes up. It sounds like a little over a month from now.
Yeah, and great point. I think we all recognize that too, that there are challenges with varying levels of social capital in any neighborhood, right? So I think we'll be looking for your feedback too on whether there's potential to build models that'll really facilitate the growing of that capacity in neighborhoods by giving people the tools that they need and the support that they need to get there, for sure. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions in the room or online? Where do you, Frank. Oh, yeah, take it away, Frank.
Oh, geez, my
Thanks.
hand's up. No, well,
that was from the last one. Okay, perfect.
That's fine. I just wanted to say, yeah, there is an area where maybe a club could host, just throwing out an idea, and we could talk about it later, a lunch and learn, for example, where city staff comes in and explains the program, and the neighborhood is invited to an event, that's hosted by the city through an organization that has a facility, or a facility maybe outside in the neighborhood, for instance, either a church basement or whatever that facility be, and it invites the neighborhood and invites staff to explain what we're trying to do. That was it.
All right, excellent. I think, you go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I'm also just going to give a very quick update on our annual update on Hamilton's climate action strategy. So again, June 11th, and it made me wonder, is the BAP going to GIC on June 11th? Is that the plan, Lauren? Is it GIC where you're presenting the update? We may have both, which would be great.
It would be an exciting day if both things are going at the same time. But for full transparency, the biodiversity action plan won't be won't be part of my reporting anymore, because I'm in the community engagement office now. But I am supporting in terms of outreach, and actually I'll connect with you on the points you just made about outreaching into community. So other efforts kind of around the BAP and engagement, that's where I'd be, but it would be planning and public works that will confirm the report when it goes to GIC.
Yeah. So I guess from our end, just in the way of quick update, staff are starting to write sections of that report, and we're kind of in the final stretch of some of our data information collection for this year. So it's humming along.
And when is that going in front of is it going to the GIC?
It's going to General Issues Committee on June 11th, and that's the only GIC meeting that's happening in June. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. And then that takes care of the Climate Change Initiative's annual update, right? Correct? Perfect. All right. So wait, let me just confirm up that we don't need to. No, we can carry on. All right, excellent. So Ian, can I pass you the chair just so I can do the buildings working group update? Thanks. Yep. So we had a meeting of the buildings working group. There were a couple of things on the agenda. The green development standards, there's been really great conversations between the Technical and Governance Committee and the Buildings Working Group with Hamilton Planning on the green development standard. The Planning Committee did come back and say that they're going to be putting in a report into the Planning Committee for April 29th, if I remember correctly. And that I believe, I'm not for sure. It's not for sure, but I believe that we will be able to see a review of that staff report before it goes into it. But otherwise, we will have to wait until it's up and posted on the agenda for it. But one of the action items that came from that meeting is the request for a motion from the Hamilton Climate Change Advisory Committee to approve a committee delegate from either the Buildings and/or Technical Governance Working Group to provide a delegation to the April 29th Planning Committee Green Development Standards agenda item on feedback related to the inclusion of Hamilton's Climate Change Advisory Committee recommendations into the proposed recommended Hamilton GDS. So we would just need to, because it's April 29th and the timing, we would have to have that motion approved at this meeting in order for the committee to do a delegation to the planning committee agenda item. So are there any questions related to that motion? And then just to see if there's any hands up. And then
I'm not seeing any online.
Nothing online, thank you. And then if there are no questions, I was wondering if we could do a vote for that.
So we have a motion on the floor from Gabby.
Oh, wait,
Gabby,
I see Juliana's hands up.
Oh, Juliana?
Gabby, could you just refer us to where exactly that motion is written out?
It is written in the agenda, and if you go down to the buildings working group, there is the minutes there, and it's one of the fourth or fifth bullet, sixth bullet down, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabby, who's seconding it? Sorry, Gabby, can you tell me who your seconder is for that motion?
I didn't have a first. Oh, God. All right. We've got a first. Sorry.
Is it a separate motion?
It's a motion, though. It's a motion, though, because I think we have to do that separately from just accepting all of this stuff, correct? Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion. I saw Lucia and Sue. And then just as a follow-up action item, is there anyone who is willing to volunteer to do that deputation?
I nominate you, Gabby.
I would, except that I probably have to do a Clean Air Partnership deputation. So I can, but it would be, I guess it's okay to do two delegate, I don't. Well, Lucia, would you be able to? You know what, why don't we, okay, so an action item is we'll follow up on who will do that deputation, and we'll be sure to let the committee know. Okay. No? Perfect. All right. The one other kind of area that came up in the...
Sorry, Gabby, we need to vote on that motion.
Sorry?
We need to vote on the motion.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead, Ian, sorry.
No, so we have the mover and seconder, so we just need to do a vote for all in favor.
I did have another question, if it's possible, before we do that. Sorry.
No, yeah, please go ahead, Juliana.
So as I'm reading the motion, I appreciate it coming forward. I wonder when we would understand what the delegation would be, what feedback would be provided, because I'm not seeing that in the notes yet.
Yeah, we can easily send out the delegation speaking notes via email to the committee.
Just if it's benefit to Juliana, and you can stop me at any time, Juliana, that if you know the backstory of this, but this is going back to the first delegation that Lucia provided with the enhanced metrics for the energy performance standards within the green building standards, that then resulted in planning committee directing staff to do ongoing or new consultation with those working groups. The working groups submitted their comments, both in written and verbal form. How many engagement activities were there? Probably about around three separate engagement activities. And I don't want to speak for the working groups at all, but it would be very similar. Their delegation would be similar to the written input that was previously provided. And although we haven't seen the memo yet, from the consultation activities that we've done and what we've heard from staff, they're very much in favor with the majority of the great input that the working group's done. So it would be, I think, determined from the working group once they see that memo, whether they agree with that updated memo. And if they do, then it would be consistent with their input. But if they don't, then you have the right to not agree with that memo, should there be any changes identified within that new memo that we're still waiting for. Hopefully that makes sense.
I can add, so WSP, the consultant, has, basically shared after each step of the consultation process, their notes, their report and takeaway. What's coming forward is going to be coming from planning staff, basically summarizing what from that they agree with and disagree with. So there's kind of a bit of a telephone effect here where we don't know for sure what's going to come forward in that final one, because we had our recommendations, then it went through WSP, now it's going to planning staff, then it goes to planning committee. However, as Trevor indicated, all of our consultations have been very positive. The vast majority of our input has been taken very seriously. And I look forward to seeing what comes forward to planning committee, and I hope it'll be consistent with what we've been advocating for and what we've seen all the way along.
Perfect. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Juliana?
Thank you. Yes.
So then now we can call the question with the mover and seconder. We had all in, so just again, all in favor, just by show of hands. Gabby, you can look at the room. I'm seeing everyone online. And then is there any opposed? I'm not seeing any online. If there's none opposed in the room, then that's the motion passed, and I'll hand the chair back to you, Gabby.
All right. I still have some other kind of updates to do on the working group. So if you could just keep the chair for now, that would be great. Sure. Thanks. That was the only one that was time sensitive that we needed to do, but other kind of suggestions that came out of the working group was there was a question with regards to Hamilton Community Enterprises, in the sense that it is owned by the city of Hamilton, and as such it should have the same GHG reduction target as the city of Hamilton is approved, but we didn't know whether there was any kind of direction from council to Hamilton Community Enterprises with regards to the net zero target and commitment applying to their business, and the need for a development of a roadmap for decarbonization for the district energy system. So we didn't know if that had ever taken place, and we were curious if it had, and if it hadn't, then we thought maybe there's some opportunities for a motion from the committee to see if Hamilton Council would direct Hamilton Community Enterprises to have a net zero target for the same date as the city of Hamilton, and then developing a roadmap for their decarbonization opportunities. Any questions on that? And then I think if there's no questions, go ahead, Alex.
Is the committee taking any action on that? I just, like, with those questions there, are you raising them here? Are you going to be
Yeah, I think what we would just do is a question. If people don't have the answer for that one, it's just more about finding out the answer to that one. And then once we find out the answer, then we can kind of go on to the next steps. If it's already taken place and Hamilton Community Enterprises already has that net zero mandate and the same target as the city of Hamilton, then there's no motion needed for it. It's just a matter of following up with Hamilton Community Enterprises for what the timeframe for their net zero roadmap.
I do believe, I think it's Councillor Wang is the council representative that's on that board. I see Councillor Cassar nodding. So just if you're looking for someone to direct that question to, who might be able to help you get that answer, help you navigate to the person who has the answer, that's all I just wanted to offer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So that was just an action item that came from the meeting. If there's any questions onto it, the next step will be, we'll report back to the committee on the answers we find to that question. The only other kind of action item that came from the meeting notes was just if we could request that the Hamilton Corporate Facility Team join an upcoming Hamilton Climate Change Advisory Committee to just present their net zero planning work undertaken thus far, some of the challenges relating to implementation that have been identified, and what kind of supports may be of value from the committee for their net zero roadmap. There's no motion or anything needed for that, right? No, it's just a request, right? And then those were the only action items that I wanted to draw attention to from the committee, unless there's any questions on anything else in the notes. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Ian.
You have the chair back now.
And then the next one on the agenda for updates is the Community Engagement and Climate Justice Working Groups. Group. Single.
So I can report on that. Hopefully Sue will join in. So we had a couple of meetings. One was March 5th, and where we met to consider with a climate justice lens the LRT governance options. And so we considered 4 and provided feedback on that. We also, during that meeting, also took a look at our new mandate combined and combining 2 working groups. So we had reviewed that, and also met again on the 9th of March to consider feedback on the climate change reserve. Did you want to add anything, Sue? So I don't think there's anything action coming out of that other than just information. That's what we have been working on.
I was curious, you know how in the Eglinton Crosstown, they had community benefits agreements in play? I was wondering if the Hamilton LRT, like Metrolinx, has moved that and had a community benefits agreements in play. Perfect. Thank you. Technical and governance, if there's any updates.
I mean, very minor because we didn't meet. Apologies from me and my co-chair Matthew. We both had just the same overlap of not being able to host last month's meeting. However, the document has been updated. The doodle poll is live. We will be meeting the week of April 6th to 11th. We just need to set the date. So members, please go fill that out. Some of the updates have already kind of been provided, talking about the Green Buildings Working Group. Linda already shared some updates on the Climate Change Reserve funding, which is something that we've looked into. The other item that Matthew is hoping to bring forward is talking about the metrics, continuing that work, especially as we get into reporting season again. There was also a couple options that people probably saw to submit feedback that Beatrice and Trevor circulated over the past month and a bit. So there's been a lot of items moving, but our group hasn't formally met. We will be meeting again and setting some new priorities for the spring/summer. So please fill out the doodle poll.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucia. Any questions? Yep. Where? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sue. I thought you were pointing to someone.
No, sorry. I was hoping that I could get OCCI to clarify. We had made an ask, Community Engagement and Climate Justice Group, when we made the new mandate. We'd made an ask through email whether or not you would be open to providing us with tasks and timelines, given that it always feels like we're mind reading what it is that you need done, and instead of kind of reinventing the wheel as we often do. So we're just wondering if you had an answer on that so that we could, start getting to work on that, or if you could add in anything.
I can start, Sue. So you're just looking for just more routine. What are some pieces that we need your support on beyond the things that kind of pop up sometimes with not a lot of notice, just something more routine? Yeah, I mean, we're meeting tomorrow. Maybe we'll give that some more thought, and apologies for not getting right back to you on that request. I'm going to be honest, sometimes for us with everything that's happening, it's hard to think about those kinds of pieces, but we can definitely come up with some ideas for elements that, unless Beatrice, you want to jump in and add anything now, maybe we'll leave it to a formal response from us over email.
Just quickly, and I don't want to speak for you, Beatrice, but I know the Climate Justice and the Communications Engagement Working Group are always top of Beatrice and all of our minds as we go through our own work. And I think some of that examples have been through like the LRT subcommittee report that Beatrice passed along, which we super appreciate all of your comments on. But I think what you're looking for is, something more long-term consistent. And I think there's an idea that we have around a student that we're working with around developing some communication tactics around misinformation, combating climate misinformation, identifying those co-benefits through the development of a communications toolkit. So hopefully that will come in a future working group, and would love to have that discussion with you folks, and then happy to have that discussion around maybe some long-term plans that we could work towards.
Any other questions? No? All right. Can I turn it over to Nature-Based Solutions Working Group?
Sure, I can take that. Thank you. We were able to meet one time in the intervening period, so I will try to set that up sooner next time. Apologies for that. And thank you to the folks who were able to meet. And just a note to the original committee members who had given some interest that they were interested in meeting on the nature-based solution. If you can give me a heads up, if you are able to still participate, let me know, and so that I can continue to send the link. But we were down to just 3 folks at the last meeting. And in our conversation, we did generate just a lot of questions that we are hoping to have some follow-up on. Some I think would be best directed to Robin. They were follow-up questions on the urban forest strategy. So I think is that the proper procedure to direct our questions directly to the staff that gave the presentation? That's a question that I have for right now, if OCCI staff can advise. And then I'll just highlight some of the other things that came up in our conversation. Definitely, we are hoping to come back to the committee with some suggestions around additional climate action strategy goals and priorities that could be added that would support nature-based solutions. Noticing that we only have the one 50,000 tree target that is in our current climate action strategy, and a lot of other valuable targets that we could include there. And then the other question I had was, we were wondering if there had been an effort, I don't know if it's through OCCI or another department, to try to collate the nature-based solution related policy commitments, actions, and targets to date. As you saw in the Biodiversity Action Plan presentation, there's a lot listed there. There's a lot in the Watershed Action Plan. There's a lot of overlapping goals and targets, and we're hoping to identify them all in one place so that that could help with our planning and advising. So I think I'll leave it at highlighting those 3 questions, and then if there's any questions from the other members of the committee on anything. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So through the chair, I was just going to say quickly, thank you, Juliana, and other working group members for all of these questions. And just scanning the list, there are definitely questions that I think OCCI staff could respond to, but we can certainly take the additional questions to Robin Pollard and her team that's working on the urban forest strategy and forestry issues more generally, and circle back and provide you hopefully with fulsome responses to the questions that you've got on that list.
So there is to follow up on an action item. There will be the kind of like the OCCI staff will help with perfect. Great. Any questions for Juliana or the Nature-Based Solutions Working Group? Being none online. Oh, go ahead, Alex, take it away.
Not a question. I just think maybe a piece of advice for everyone, just so they're feeling like there's less lag time between having the questions and getting the answers, is maybe thinking of these minutes as these are the list of questions our working group sent to Beatrice at our meeting to help them get to the mechanism. And then it's more you're reporting up to the committee on, we've already sent this email off, as opposed to waiting for these minutes or waiting for this opportunity to be like, and now we get to ask these questions. And so that way, if you had your meeting, 2 weeks ago, you're not waiting 2 weeks for questions to get answered. Just maybe a piece there just so folks feel like there's that flow there. On the note of reaching out to staff directly or that, I think if you're reaching out to the staff liaison for the committee, you're always reaching out to the right person, and may be able to direct further follow-up from there, just so folks feel like they're not, there's not so much stop, start to some of this work.
Yeah, good point. All right, action item to send those questions to Urban Forestry. All right, perfect. So we have one more working group update. Ian, can I call on you for the transportation working group update, please?
Yeah, so we finally met. Minutes were pretty sparse because we kept an open-ended conversation this time for our first meeting. We generally agreed that the direction we want to take is a high-level analysis of the City of Hamilton transportation policies and actions, and provide an overall objective evaluation of what we're looking at. And we spent a lot of time talking about who we would like to bring into the working group, because I mean, at least from my perspective, and I think others may agree, there's a lot of work and opinion about transit and transportation in the city generally. So I think the chances of finding some outside working group members is pretty strong to assist us with this effort. We spent some time putting together a list of groups and city departments that we want to talk to, as well as spend some time talking about not just like transit and roads, but other transportation related policies. So we very much intended to keep at a very high level and not try to drill too much into solely transit or solely cycling or really any specific transportation topic that there already is a dedicated group or department for. And we're trying to take a much wider, cast a wider net on this, keeping in mind that we have a bit of a short period of time left for the working group to do some work. So we're, I think, trying to bite off an amount that we can chew in the 2 years left or so that we have for the term. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And also Sue may have some additional pieces that I maybe glossed over that she wants to highlight.
Sue, anything you want to add?
No, Ian, that was great. We did keep it pretty high level. We are interested in casting that net, like you said, to find out more. Especially, I couldn't read what was up there, and it's been a while since I saw those minutes. But the kind of policy scans that include, environment, eco, things that may not necessarily say climate change or climate crisis, because it's been, some time since those policies have come along. So yeah, so that's sort of where we're at with that, and looking forward to getting started with that.
Okay. Any questions for transportation working group? Going once, going twice? All right. One of the questions that we did want to kind of raise on this one, it was brought up in the previous meeting, and I just wanted to raise it again with a reminder to all the working groups that working group participation, or the participants in the working group, are not limited to committee members. One of the key real goals of the working groups is to start getting a little bit of our hands further into the Hamilton community, so that it's not within the committee, but the working groups are going to bring in other stakeholders important in that stream and bringing them into the working group. So one of the key questions we wanted to throw out to the committee is, and you don't have to answer it now, unless of course there is key things that come to mind, but if you don't have input on that just as of yet, we would like to kind of identify it as an action item for the next meeting, where we do kind of put some brain power to thinking of who are the Hamilton stakeholders who each of the working groups may want to consider for bringing into that working group, to better enable the working groups to really enable build that wider stakeholder base associated with that action area. So just in case there are anything, I would like to kind of just, while if there's some thoughts going through people's minds, I'll give you an example. In the Buildings Working Group, Bay Area Climate Change Collaborative is working on green development standards across both Hamilton and Burlington, as well as retrofit programs. It made sense. So we invited Bay Area Climate Change Collaborative to join the working group to try and bring in a lot more stakeholders who are working on this effort. Certainly there's other, Hamilton Community Enterprises, we did identify them for kind of engaging the working group to engage with Hamilton Community Enterprise to ask those questions and find out from them some of their kind of roadmaps that they have been advancing on that one. But one of the key questions we're looking to find out from folks is you have a really good sense of the different stakeholders across the Hamilton community, and we really want to try and engage those people in these working groups so that we can better enable that input, community input, to come to the committee. So are there any kind of initial brainstorming thoughts on stakeholders? Take it away, Sue.
More of a question.
Yeah.
Should we start collecting that information in advance of the next meeting? Like,
yes.
Should we start maybe a doc or something so that
when
people are thinking about it, they can add it?
Do you want me to set up a Google Doc and stuff? I can do that.
If that's okay with everyone, because if everyone has thoughts and they just...
Yeah, I get what you mean, because otherwise you think about it and then forget about it. Okay, I'll set up a Google Doc on that one, and then for people to add in their input for suggestions. All right. Any other kind of input on the working groups? No? All right, then the next order of business is I need a mover and a seconder to receive these items, all the 7 items, 7 agenda items. Ian is the mover, and seconder is Sue. Or Shelley, I think, which was the hand there? Was it both? Sorry. And then all in favor of approving that information? All right, anyone opposed? Seeing no opposition to it, that is accepted. All right, next item, items for consideration. Are there any items for consideration that any committee members would like to bring in front of the committee? There's nothing on the agenda, but this is the chance. No? Okay. We don't have any motions. We don't have any notices of motion on that one. We do have some general information about the Voluntary Advisory Committee review update. I was just wondering who would be speaking to that. Oh, thanks. Take it away, Beatrice.
Hi, I think we also have Lauren Fretz, who can add to the update, but basically there was a meeting of the GIC, a review of the Voluntary Advisory Committee, and basically what happened was that the recommendation that based on municipal best practices, a new civic engagement model needed to be applied that uses resident-led, staff-facilitated community liaison groups. So that's a change now. So we're going to be switching over. I think everyone already knew this because we talked about this already. And so this is going to be with a clear ability to make their voices heard by council of each division, reporting back with tailored solutions within 1 year. And for us, our advisory committee, so we're also going to have the creation of that community liaison group, like the other advisory committees, to replace the Climate Change Advisory Committee, and the very same mandate, the very same terms of reference are associated. So I'm gonna maybe ask Lauren, do you want to just add, because you have a little update on that too?
So I'm very new to our community engagement group, but I will say that staff and our team did work. They were the ones that brought this report forward. So our group in community engagement is looking at the recommendations of the report and looking to facilitate some discussions with the staff leads that support the advisory committees currently to help determine what the most appropriate and, what are the must-do things for a community liaison group, but what are also the things that are flexible, that different advisory committee or community liaison groups is what they'll end up likely being called, even though that's a bit of a mouthful. Where is the flexibility? Because the intent of this is that there would be opportunity for more, a less rigid process for the advisory committee for reporting, and more opportunity for folks who may not be comfortable in a formal setting like this to participate more actively in these type of meetings. So it's intended to be an opportunity to open the doors to more participation from a variety of groups. And so we will be working with staff to hopefully just have some conversations about how to facilitate the conversation with you and then how to meet that 1-year turnaround for what that community liaison groups will look like.
Any questions?
I just feel like I need to add one more point. I think as this process is working through, I think fair to say that, the existing committee and its composition and the way that we've been functioning will continue is my understanding. And I know that's something that we've all talked about, and that's very important. It'll just be a matter of navigating that pathway forward. Our understanding is that the change will come with a new term of council, just in terms of, in that term, how community members will be recruited into a community liaison group and all of that working for us. So I want to say that I want to reassure all of you that I don't see how we're all working together changing. So yeah, I guess we'll hear details about the transition as it unfolds, including, that obligation that we have, I guess, by February of next year to report up to GIC on the pathway forward and to consult. Yes, the extra, of course, you all know we consult.
And then I see Jeff, and then was that Sue or Mary Ellen's hand? Sue's hand. Oh, sorry. Because she has a big door. Wait, no, was it? It's Sue's hand, right? Oh, sorry. Was it Shelley's? I couldn't see. Okay, sorry. Sue's hand. Okay. Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, no, I'm just, I guess, kind of wondering, in terms of engaging a broader range of folks in the community, are there going to be resources for that? Like, I'm just wondering if the engagement, if we're talking about putting out stuff on Engage and expecting more folks to come out of the woodwork, or is this going to be something that's resourced in such a way as like meetings, in-person meetings in various parts of Hamilton, to say, hey, we've got these opportunities, like reaching out to organizations? I'm just kind of wondering what it's looking like, or what the intent is, because I get that there's, this is one of the rationales for the structure changing. I'm just wondering what's going to be supporting this sort of intended outcome. Thanks.
So what I can offer is that, not knowing exactly what the work plan will be, we're working on implementing that, and we're going to be talking to our staff leads about what the opportunities are, what is their capacity for engagement as well. But our group is the Public Engagement, Community Engagement Office. We are a support for all staff teams at the city, and we do have a community of practice that's quite robust in terms of documentation for staff to access, and we do support for bigger projects like this that are citywide, that involve multiple departments. We do offer resources in terms of being able to get facilities booked and to walk you through the engagement process as well. But staff in the Office of Climate Change Initiatives do a lot of engagement as well. So I think we will just be providing whatever support is really needed to make this as smooth a process as possible, and also to bring. We do have opportunity through some of our networks to bring in additional voices to connect this group with some other additional community partners that that may have an interest, and so we can facilitate those conversations.
All right. Sorry, just Sue is next, and then Trevor.
Since this was staff recommended, and you're going to, the community engagement group is going to be working on this, department. Is there going to be funding available for community partners since, I mean, this is climate change and we're talking about, equity deserving groups and we want to bring more people in. Is there going to be funding available, to help pay, what are the stipends? Trying to think, honorariums, thank you. That's the right word, thank you. Just curious.
So just to clarify, are you asking about if once the community liaison group is formed, whether there be some resources to be able to pay a stipend for? I don't know if that's been determined yet. I know that it was brought up as a potential for that has a bit more flexibility with us going away from the volunteer advisory committee review model and moving to something less formal. There may be, and I'd have to check back with HR on that because I'm not entirely sure, but I don't, there's nothing in the staff report that specifically speaks to that as a direction. I think it would come through those, the determination of the structure and then the administration of the committees.
And then just before I turn it over to Trevor, Shelley, did you have your hand up that I missed? No, okay, sorry. All right, then Trevor, take it away.
Thanks, and hopefully this will somewhat address both Jeff and Sue's questions and comments is, again, just that ongoing commitment of the OCCI to engage with the CCAC to work through those questions and come up with the best recommendations that would help guide this report back in a year's time. And I think that's what I'm most excited about is the increased flexibility that Lauren speaks to of the community liaison working groups. And although all of those good questions that Jeff and Sue asked is still to be determined, what we've seen from other jurisdictions who operate staff liaison working groups is that flexibility, is that ability to potentially pay honorariums or compensate people for their time. And so I would be interested in helping to support that, those flexibilities and those ongoing, I guess, potentially compensations. But I mean, when we look at the report, it does clearly say that the current budget for the CCAC of $9,000 would then go into our department ID to then support this future community liaison working group. Is that enough for what we want to achieve in a future community liaison working group? Let's decide that, and through consultation and in that report back, if we need or want that, we will need to discuss that.
Lucia, and then Sue.
I was going to ask about the public-facing nature of the meetings, whether or not that we have the flexibility for that to remain. I understand the whole idea here is that it's flexible, so we can choose. Is that something we would be able to choose? For example, having this stream to YouTube. If all the members of the group still feel that's valuable, will that continue to happen? Will the city continue to post it, et cetera?
You can answer that.
I can't answer that, sorry, but I will just say, and Lucia, that's such a great point, because I think even our co-chair, Ian, delegated the concerns about that. Like, that's the benefit of these rigid formality advisory committees, is that it's all transparent and broadcast. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I'll just highlight again here, because this one is, that, some of the meetings, especially when we're dealing with things that are kind of like, hot environmental issues in Hamilton, will have a few hundred views on them, right? Like, people are actually looking at this. And, members of our groups, I know certainly I've directed people from Hamilton 350, et cetera, to be like, hey, watch and see what this presentation had. It was right there. And I feel like that is something valuable we would lose, and we would be interested in, and I certainly would be interested in trying to see how can we preserve some of that for the wider community, that yes, your mandate is to consult with us, but also it's great that now all of this stuff becomes part of the public interest and public good.
And sorry, I think I'll just build on that a little bit and just say that We have to, I think what we were talking about implementation and working with the staff leads for each of the current volunteer advisory committees, it's really laying out, what are the must-do things? Like in order to ensure transparency into these groups, what are the things that have been most valuable? Like in terms of your feedback as a committee member and the opportunity to have community really interested in the views that you have on a live stream. Well, that's really valuable for obviously everyone to know. And so maintaining that, looking at maintaining that and making that a norm for these going forward is part of that discussion that we'll be having. Yeah.
And then Ian and then Sue.
Yeah, just
Ian,
really
take it away.
Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to also acknowledge during the discussion that council had about these changes, a councillor member who had to hop off, Cameron Cratch, Ward 2 councillor, he raised this point, and I think it's worth raising again in this context where the skills that councillors must learn very quickly are not skills that anyone can learn really, and in many cases councillors learn it on the job. The only other real way to learn the skills of participating in a city meeting, following staff presentations and things like that are through participation in these committees. So I would really hope and that, whatever form we end up taking still, there's very practical, I think, democracy type considerations that Lucia raised already, but I think there's also the reality is that this is a means for people to find out if they want to get involved in politics and they want to find out if it's something that they can be good at. And so I would hope that the rigidness and the formality is also a means for people to gain skills and learn how to participate further in City Hall, generally speaking. So I think that's worth for us to keep in mind too.
Thanks, Ian. Sue, take it away.
Yeah, this is more of a follow-up comment from way back when I was saying something. Because things happened in closed session and we didn't get to really hear what was said and the details. There have been a lot of just questions sort of percolating from that. But yeah, it's going to be great to work through this, and see what it is that's going to come from that. But thank you for continuing to give us updates, and it'd be great, as you find out more, to let us know too.
And then Ian, if I could just ask you to take the chair so I can ask one question. I was just curious, I prefer the non-formalized structure. I feel always kind of weird and on the structured kind of things and making mistakes all the time on that one. But one of the good things about this is the ability that there is some sort of governance between the committee and council or committees, with promotions being possible. Is that something that would that be able to be retained so that there is a governance structure associated with it? Is that something that's still to be determined on that one?
I have the report in front of me, and I do believe that the intention through the report was that it would be up to the working group, the community liaison group with the staff member that assists them to determine through their structure, their intention to report back to the committee that they currently still report to. And so with the recommendations, the way they're structured, they have always the committee that you would then take your reports to. So, and I believe the report does mention a minimum expectation of one report in annually from each of the working groups. I know that other working groups, they may wish to do more, right? So I think it depends on the activity of the group, and the interest in reporting and how it ties back maybe into some council priorities as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. I don't see any further. Oh, sorry, Shelley, take it away.
Just one quick thing to add to supporting people through paying them childcare, possibly bus fare or transportation, interpretive services for language and so on. I would add those to the list of supports to encourage full participation. Thanks.
Okay, I think we are done with the agenda. So I think the next step is there's no further business. So I do need a mover and a seconder to receive the information on the Voluntary Advisory Committee review update. Ian is the mover. Seconder is Lucia. Right, all in favor? Excellent. And is anyone opposed? Didn't think so. All right. So now the Hamilton Climate Change Advisory Committee meeting for March 25th is adjourned at 7:35 p.m. So thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you very much for all the input. And we'll see you in a month and chat with you over the next 30 days then. Have a great one.
Good night, everybody.
Night all.